Welcome to another Sunday morning conversation, everybody. Today, my guest is Ginger Howell. She is an American pro triathlete, and she is fresh off Lanzarote. And we talk about that. And she was also a circus performer instructor at one point before she went into became triathlete. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. I appreciate it.
Awesome. I can hear you too.
Good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. Yeah, I did Ironman Lanzarote a few days ago, so it's kind of recovery mode, but legs are starting to feel better.
What is the travel like to get to Lanzarote?
Long and complicated. So actually on the way over, I flew from Boston to Philadelphia and then to Madrid and then to Lanzarote because for some reason it was a lot cheaper to change planes in Philadelphia. And then on the way back, we flew from Lanzarote to Madrid and then to Boston. And I mean, we had like a 3-hour layover each time just because if you have like a 30-minute or even a 1-hour layover, then you kind of have to stress about whether your bike is going to make it. So it was over 24 hours on the way over there, and then on the way back you're changing time zones in the other direction, but it's complicated.
Yeah, I have plenty of questions. Like, I'm racing a Roth next year, and so I only have
Oh,
I can
wow.
get a direct flight from Atlanta to Frankfurt, so I don't have to worry about making connecting flights in my bike. As long as it makes
That's a
it
major
okay.
plus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So how much did that even cost to book that flight? I realize pros it's expensive, but
It was like 850 or 860. It was actually not very much more expensive than going to Texas. I had originally planned to do Ironman Texas, and between the two, Lanzarote was the one that excited me a lot more. I mean, I like hilly courses. That seemed like a more interesting place to go. It's been on my bucket list. So that was the one I wanted to do. And I had talked myself into doing Ironman Texas instead, just because I thought it was going to be cheaper and a lot simpler logistically. And then when I saw that the prices were the same, I was like, you know what? I'm going to Lanzarote. Lost all my reasons for Texas.
tell me more about Lanzarote. I mean, I know it's got the reputation of being a hard course, hilly, windy. Tell me about it.
It has a very well-earned reputation for being a hard course. It has about 8,000 feet of climbing, and it had about a 20-mile-per-hour wind, and it always feels like you're going against the wind more than you're going with the wind. I knew what the hills were going to be like because we drove the bike course. When I say we, my mom was there too, and she's great about supporting me at a lot of my races. So
My mom's
we drove
coming
the
with
bike.
me to Roth.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, my mom and I drove the bike course a couple of days before the race, so I knew what the hills were going to be like, although that doesn't make them any less difficult. And we drove the course with the windows rolled up, so we didn't know just how bad the wind was going to be. So just to put the wind in perspective, they have entire fields of stone walls to protect their plants. They grow grapevines and things for wine, and each grapevine has this stone wall built around it on the side that the wind's usually coming from, just to protect it from the wind so it doesn't get blown over and die. And after riding 112 miles in that wind, I can see why they decided that was necessary, because the wind is just in your face the whole time. That's my rant about how hard the course was, but it was totally worth it. It was an amazing place to be. It was beautiful, and I'm really glad I did it, even though it was about an hour slower than usual.
Yeah, how hot was that run?
Well, the run was flatter than the bike, and it was a run. And of course, the run is affected by how hard you pushed on the bike, and if the bike takes like 45 minutes longer than usual, then that's 45 more minutes worth of energy that you don't have going into the run. So I think that's really the biggest factor that makes the run difficult. The weather honestly wasn't bad. You get all the elevation gain out of the way during the bike. And honestly, it wasn't very hot. It was like, I think maybe 70, like it was a good temperature for running. So, but everybody kind of goes into the run with their legs kind of trashed and blown up. So that makes the run difficult.
Okay. What about that swim? Was it, I mean, just a typical ocean swim?
I thought the swim was hard because I got dropped at the first turn buoy. I mean, it just happened to be a lot of fast swimmers in the race, and then I was swimming on my own for a lot of it, and I found the parts where you're swimming into the sun difficult, just because it's hard to see the buoys, and you might not end up going in quite as straight a line when you're having trouble sighting. So I personally had a tough swim, but I think that was more my having a tough day than the course itself being hard. I mean, the water was really nice. It was clear. So it was a nice swim course, but just my getting dropped early in the swim, winding up on my own, and then having trouble sighting kind of led to a tough day for me.
Would you do it again?
Absolutely. But I'm glad you asked me that now instead of an hour after the race, because I might have had a different answer.
I can understand that. Are you a faster, like more short course, racer, non-drafting than you are in the 70.3 in Ironman?
Actually, no, I think the longer the distance, the better I am at it. I mean, endurance is my strong suit, and speed has never really come naturally to me. I mean, I've worked hard for a lot of years to develop speed, and I have developed a fair amount of speed, but it's something that I think I've struggled with more than the average pro. And I mean, when you get 8, 9, 10 hours into a race and it just kind of becomes a war of attrition, and it's just a matter of putting one foot in front of the other, that's actually the part that I tend to do the best at.
Tell me about your former life. That's the really interesting part about you.
So I actually used to teach classes with a youth circus program for a while before I got into triathlon seriously.
Keep going, keep going. I got to hear about
Okay.
it.
So I mostly did balance skills and aerial skills. Balance being, well, we call them equilibristic skills, where you're doing like stilt walking, tight wire walking, globe walking, that sort of thing. And then aerial skills. My specialty was aerial hoop, which is like a trapeze, but it's a hoop instead of a bar, and also a little bit of aerial fabrics. Where you see like the different colored fabrics hanging from the ceiling, and you can like hang upside down in different ways and do different skills on them. So I taught classes in that, and I performed that a little bit. So
How did you get into that? Like, what?
actually, when I was in college, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do with my life, as I guess a bunch of college students aren't. And my roommate found out about the circus group that was on campus, and she wanted to go check it out, but she didn't want to go by herself. So she convinced me to go to a meeting of the circus group with her. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I don't have time for this, but I'll go once. And so I went with her, and I actually got hooked on it. And that kind of became a main focus of mine. And then I ended up teaching circus classes for several years after I graduated from college.
Okay. It's definitely interesting. Yes, I hear you. What do you want? It's my cats. I don't know if you have any pets. Do you have pets?
I do not. Actually, I had cats growing up, but since I travel so much, it would be tough to have pets because I'd always be leaving them home while I was away at races. So
You think
that's
so?
why I
But
don't have pets now.
I might not race as much as you, but I do race a fair bit. And, I'm only leaving them for a few days. I get a pet sitter, but it's not like a dog, because literally I'm just paying the pet sitter to show up, clean the litter box, feed them, give them water, and that's it. She doesn't have to stop over like a dog, like 4 or 5 times a day to walk it, because that's $100 a day, depending on where you're at. Whereas, for 2 cats, it's like $20. It's like, oh, okay, this is actually kind of manageable. So
Yeah.
it's not that bad. So how did you go from being training circus performers to triathlon? Where was that middle step that got you there?
Well, I had always been interested in, well, I'd always been interested in like swimming and endurance sports to some extent. I got interested in swimming in high school, or that's when I started swimming competitively. And I was really passionate about that. And then I got interested in running when also when I was in college. I actually, well, I ran a little bit in high school. I actually started running, believe it or not, because in swimming, my kick was the weakest part of my stroke and I needed to do something to make my legs stronger. So I started running in 11th grade, and my first 5K was 35 minutes. A lot of people don't believe that, but because well, now I go 18 minutes. But I mean, that was where I started out with running, and I kind of hated it well, I did hate it the first couple of years. But it was a sacrifice I made for swimming. I wasn't the fast swimmer either, but I really loved swimming and I wanted to do whatever I needed to do to get better at it. And then in college, I actually stopped hating running in college just because I moved from South Carolina to Boston and it wasn't 100 degrees all the time. And we had nice places to run. I went to Wellesley, which it has this beautiful lake that you can run around, which I enjoyed. And we're also the halfway point of the Boston Marathon. So I watched the Boston Marathon my first year, and that was kind of what put the idea in my head that I wanted to run a marathon someday. And specifically, I wanted to run the Boston Marathon someday.
Have you?
I have, yes. So that got me to really start focusing on my running in a new way, where it was the first time I was focused on running for running's sake and not just something I was doing for swimming. And it took me 3 years of working at it, but I did actually qualify for the Boston Marathon my senior year. And then actually that was after that, one of my friends on the swim team told me, you're a swimmer, you're a marathoner. Biking is the easy part. You should do an Ironman. And I was like, oh, okay, that sounds cool. And I ended up signing up for an Ironman. I had no idea what I was getting into. I didn't own a bike. I'd never done a sprint triathlon. Fortunately, that was back in 2009. So that was back when you had to sign up about a year in advance. So I had a year to figure out what I was getting into and work on it. And I did, and I trained really hard. I went like 11:30, which I guess isn't
That's respectable.
Yeah, that's respectable. I got really burned out in the process. But up until then, I had always maintained the attitude that I needed to train as hard as possible. And I think I kind of felt like training smart was some kind of code for being lazy. I just didn't, my focus was always just train hard. And after I went 11:30, I mean, it's respectable, but there were people who went so much faster than me. And that was kind of when I realized, wait, what are all these people doing that I'm not doing? And well, I got burned out and I kind of took a break from Ironmans for a few years and did some shorter stuff. But then when I got back into it, I was kind of willing to look at other aspects of training besides just how hard I was training. And I think I took kind of a more balanced approach to it and look at more different aspects of it and listening to my body more. So that was, I guess that was 2014 was when I did my next Ironman. And during that time frame, I was doing triathlons, but I wasn't really putting my whole heart into it. And I was also doing Circus, which is a very different sport, but I was kind of half-assing both of them. And I mean, I knew that in some ways they have certain things in common. I mean, in both of them, you learn to be, you need a certain level of fitness. You need a certain level of, you learn to listen to your body, and you develop strength and so forth, but then there are ways in which they work against each other too. For example, if you're trying to develop extreme amounts of flexibility, that directly works against being able to run fast. Running hard and fast makes your muscles more resistant to becoming flexible. And like working on like trying to be able to do a split or something makes it more difficult to be able to run well. So like there are examples like that where they just work against each other. And I kind of knew for like those several years that at some point I need to choose. I'm never going to be able to fully live up to my potential in either sport if I'm trying to do both of them. At some point I'm going to have to take a choice, to make a choice. And in 2014, actually I broke my arm. I like fell off something while I was doing Circus, and that was when I was training for my second Ironman, and that was kind of what forced me to make a choice. And I was like, okay, I need to do one or the other here, because I really can't like do both of these things right now. I mean, there's a limited amount that I'm like, as I'm recovering, I need to like focus on one or the other. So that kind of precipitated my deciding to focus on triathlon. I think it's inevitable. That's the choice that I would have made anyway, because I never quite had a passion for Circus on the same level. But like after that, I wasn't like, if I had wanted to be a professional aerialist, I wouldn't have been able to after that injury. But I mean, I'm able to swim fine with it. If I try to do super heavy strength training, my arm gets achy. So I mean, I can't do extreme levels of strength training the way I could 10 years ago. But I mean, that precipitated my having to make that choice. And it's the choice that I would have made anyway. It just, that just like affected when I made it.
Did you have health insurance when you broke your arm? Because I don't know if that I don't know if that came with it. Like if you had that as part of your circus training, if you had a full-time job to go with that.
I did have health insurance. I mean, it's always kind of a fight with the insurance company about how much they're going to cover and how much you're going to cover. But yeah, I did have health insurance. So.
Well, that's good. I mean, you know, when I got hit by my car, I had health insurance for 5 days. I went on October 5th, and I got 1st, and I got hit by the 5th. So I can understand, like, you know, oh man, it's so glad when something bad happens that you have it, because it's
yes, definitely.
It would just be a world of hurt otherwise. So when did you get your pro card?
So I got my pro card in 2018, actually. I missed it by 8 seconds in 2016. I did the Timberman 70.3, and I was trying to get my pro card, and if I'd gone 8 seconds faster, I would have earned it. But in retrospect, I wasn't ready for it at that point mentally. So I think in some ways it's a blessing in disguise that it took me a couple more years to get it. So yeah, I got it in 2018, and in the fall, or no, I guess, yeah, no, I got it in the spring, summer, and my first race was as a pro was in the fall of 2018. And then I had 2019, and then we had COVID. So most of 2020 got canceled. So I guess technically this is my 5th year racing pro, but it doesn't quite feel like it's been 5 years.
You never really got to use it to its full ability yet.
True, yeah.
So are you strictly an Ironman type person, or do you see yourself doing challenge races, or perhaps like the Rev 3s have come back, and Clash is out there? Do you see yourself doing any of those?
So I've done a couple of the Clash races, actually. Challenge / Clash. I did challenge Daytona the second year they had it, and then I did challenge Miami. And then I did challenge Daytona again last year. I think it's a really cool concept how they have those races, and it's I mean, I love how they make it so that spectators can actually watch the whole thing. What I don't like is it's pancake flat, and I've always done best on hills, both in the bike and the run. I just perform better on hilly courses than on flat courses, and so I don't feel like those races are very conducive to my skill set. But I mean, it was a really fun atmosphere to do.
I can understand that. I've heard that Watkins Glen is not one of those I'm going to go around in circles on a flat track thing. They sort of sending you out into wine country for that one, so that may be different.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, I've heard that one might not be as flat. I'm debating doing that one. There are a number of races that I have my eye on this summer, and I've been told by various coaches that I should try not to race every weekend. It's better to spend my time training most of the time and pick out a few key events. So, and I'm trying to listen to that a little bit. So I'm not sure if Watkins Glen is going to be on the is going to be on my schedule or not this year, but it does sound like a really cool one to do.
I would love to do it. The only problem is, and I looked into doing, the price of the race is not just the main factor for me to do a race. It's how much are your hotels going to cost? And it just happens, they like to promote that Watkins Glen is about, it's like, oh, you get passes to the wine festival and everything. What they don't tell you is the wine festival actually really jacks up the prices of hotels.
I hadn't thought about that, and that's a really good thing to take into consideration.
They are 3 times as expensive as pretty much any other race outside of Oceanside that I've ever seen or looked into. So, and and they're like, well, you can camp at the stadium grounds. I'm like, I don't have a camper. I'm not sleeping in the back of my car.
Yeah. Yeah, true. So, yeah, that is definitely something to take into consideration.
And, I've been told by other pros that I've talked to on my show that their experience with Clash is different from Ironman, that they kind of treat you kind of like human beings, and, they give you a nice experience. Pros, they'll put you up at hotels, it's a nice get together, it's actually, for those backpack, mid-pack, they treat you, different than the front of the pack. Is that what you're like?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, I feel like you definitely feel like you're cared about by Clash and Challenge. And that's one thing I love about their race is you're a real person to them. And I mean, even I was there with my mom and they knew her by name and she was allowed to go, it was like, oh, hey, Barbara. And you're allowed to, if you have friends or family with you, then they can get into VIP areas and you can actually meet them at the finish line instead of having to go somewhere away from the finish chute that they're allowed to be. But yeah, they're such a nice organization to work with.
Yeah, Bill Christie's kind of cool. I interviewed him too. I'm like, oh man.
Oh yeah, he's amazing.
The neat thing about Bill is when I talked to him right after Miami when I did that in 2021, and I was telling him about the course, and I was telling him the things that he didn't know, and he picks up a big ass Sharpie and he starts writing on his big notepad on the wall, and he's like, hold on a second, let me get that down. I'm like, wait, are you writing what I'm telling you? He's like, yeah. He's like, I think it's important for this race. I'm like, oh wow. I'm like, I've never had a race director do that in the moment before, so it was kind of neat.
Yeah, absolutely. Bill is amazing. I met him at Challenge Daytona the first time I did it, and after the race we were brainstorming about ideas for the different ways you could different ideas for future races there, and it was it was really cool speaking with him.
Yeah. So I'm going to get you out of here on this one. What are your plans for and goals coming forward? What's your race schedule going to be like for the rest of the year? It's just early in the season.
So I just found out that I got a spot to the Escape from Alcatraz Triathlon, which I'm super excited about. That's probably my number one favorite race. And so that's coming up in about a week and a half. And so yeah, that's what I'm getting ready for at the moment.
I would be too. Obviously you're a pro, so does it have the same price tag on it as age groupers have?
No, it does not.
Okay, so that's what deters me. It's like, oh wait, this costs as much as an Ironman does. Wow, because it went from 100 to 750. It's like, oh my god.
Yeah, that can be steep.
So what are your long-term goals, and how? You're a little bit older now. How much longer do you plan on doing it for?
I'd like to do it for as long as I can. As long as I'm improving, as long as I'm enjoying it. I don't have a specific number of years in mind. I would definitely like to keep doing the sport my whole life. And I think that's one of the things that's special about the sport is that it's one where you can do it up into your I mean, 60s, 70s, 80s. I mean, I want to eventually, in 50 years, I want to be that 85-year-old who's like hobbling across the finish line of an Ironman.
That's my goal. My goal is the war of attrition, right? I'm gonna do it when I'm in my 80s, and that's how I'm gonna make Kona. The only way I'm gonna make Kona.
I'll keep racing pro for as long as I am enjoying racing pro, and as long as I feel like I'm improving my times, and eventually I'll go back to being an age grouper. But I always want to keep doing the sport in some respect.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Well, Ginger, thanks for giving me some time today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's great speaking with you.
Yeah, rest up and enjoy Skate to Alcatraz. I'm definitely going to be following along with that one. It's just such a unique race.
Yes, it is. Yep.
Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you. You too.